In the 4 years of court battles with John, we are still in Supreme Court fighting an appeal. We have a family court, criminal court, child support, and TPO court cases. That's 5 court case numbers I have had to memorize, documents enough to fill a filing cabinet. In all those documents, there are countless lies, false testimonies made by him or his attorney on his behalf.
Can we do your case, McDonald?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Page 20. State versus John McDonald, C339479. He is present. He's at liberty, and this is on for sentencing. Sir, do you know of any legal cause or reason why judgment should not be pronounced against you at this time? By virtue of your plea entered in this matter, I hereby adjudicate you guilty of count 1, coercion, sexually motivated. Does the state wish to say anything other than, I see it's a stipulated sentence?
Yes, Your Honor, please follow that. And what I would note, Your Honor, is I believe we have 3 victim speakers, all of them on blue jeans. My understanding is Allison will speak, and will speak. And I believe they're all under the name of Allison on blue jeans. So.
Okay. Do you want to say anything, sir?
No, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, usually I would submit, but in light of the fact that we've got 3 victim speakers, I just briefly want to remind the court about why we negotiated the way we did. And Your Honor was aware of this case. This case had a tortured history. This was a Cripps plea. The court did indicate, Your Honor, indicated you were inclined to follow the negotiation prior to entry of plea. This case started in family court, truly. This is a marriage that was dissolving. Mr. McDonald had never been accused of any improper conduct towards his wife or his children. On the day that his wife wanted to leave him, she called the police and made an accusation of domestic violence. The police responded. They investigated. Those accusations were unsubstantiated. My client was not arrested. The next day, she went to family court and sought a temporary protective order against my client and the children, trying to keep him from being able to see his children. She then filed a petition for divorce, asking the court for full custody with no visitation whatsoever. The family court denied that request and ordered visitation because there was no accusation Mr. McDonald had done anything untoward towards his children. She then took the children to the police station and told the police that, he's been pointing firearms at the children. The police interviewed the children and investigated that. That was unsubstantiated. There was no evidence that had occurred. No charges were filed on that case. Throughout all this time, there was an order that my client was supposed to be able to see his children that was being violated. He had not once seen his children since the day his wife left the residence with them. He finally filed an order to show cause in family court, bringing all of this before the family court judge that, the court had ordered visitation. That order was continually being violated. The court had ordered that visitation based on the fact that there's no conduct towards the children. Then we're suddenly getting all these accusations of conduct towards the children. And it culminates on the day of the order to show cause, when the family court was inclined to hold Mr. McDonald's wife in contempt of court for violating her order repeatedly. Ms. McDonald walked into court and said he's been molesting all 3 children. And that is where these accusations come from. And that is the history of these accusations. The children were then forensically interviewed. 2 of the 3 adamantly denied being molested by Mr. McDonald. The 3rd spoke in depth about the fact that her mother had repeatedly told her that my client was abusing her mother, and talked about this abuse. The forensic interviewers inquired of the child, did you ever witness any abuse yourself? No, but mommy told me about it. So we know that there was parental alienation occurring here prior to these allegations being made. We know 2 of these 3 children denied being molested. And we ended up in a situation where my client charges were filed against my client. My client was interrogated. I know the PSI makes it sound like there was a confession. There was not a confession in this case. There were statements of, has it ever, in the whole time that you and your children have lived together, has there ever been a possibility that contact has occurred? Things of that nature. It were broad questions like that. My client,
I don't know. Some of the things he said were
not great, but my client is
they
also
were not normal.
My client is also an medically discharged veteran, honorably discharged and medically discharged. He's considered 90% disabled because a bomb fell on his head during his time in service. It is documented that he has cognitive deficits as a result of that. I filed a motion before the court, and Your Honor had the chance to review the motion. This was one of the most leading interrogations. My client was interrogated twice for over 2 hours each time. He maintained his innocence for so much time, and eventually the questioning was, in an innocent context could it have happened? In an innocent context could it have happened? Which eventually led to the statements, which were problematic, which is why this case dealt rather than going to trial. But the reality is, Your Honor, we're talking about a case where 2 different family court judges at different times observed that they believed this case was being used to manipulate the family court cases. 2 different family court judges. And in fact, the second family court, when they finally gave Ms. McDonald full custody of the children, specifically said, if he gets a not guilty at trial, I am reconsidering this ruling. And I will give him partial custody of the children. That is what was going on in family court, and the extent to which this case was being used as leverage and as a tool in family court. I would submit to Your Honor, the children, 2 of the children not only denied, one of the children during the forensic interview, when they were specifically asked, because they kept denying that anything was happening, they were asked, well, have you been told anything that's a secret that you're not supposed to repeat? And what the child said at that point was, Mommy said that she's going to take us all and we're all going to move to the East Coast to live with her twin sister. Which is exactly what ended up happening. The children are now living in the East Coast with no visitation. My client has no visitation, no custody. He gave everything up. And they live in the East Coast. And one of the children said that was going to occur in the very first forensic interview. So I would submit to Your Honor, this case dealt, my client pled pursuant to the Alford decision. This case dealt the way it did for a reason. And I know the district attorney's office spoke with Ms. McDonald and ran this negotiation by her prior to the entry of plea. I had lengthy conversations with Mr. Rose, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that we actually approached the bench and Mr. Rose made the same representations, Your Honor, prior to the entry of plea. There was a lot going on here, Your Honor, and this was a case, rarely do I stand in front of a court and say, I do believe that my client was set up. But certainly there was an overwhelming amount of evidence in this case that might have been happening, and 2 family court judges believed that was what was happening. So I would ask the court, Your Honor indicated you were going to follow the negotiations, and I would ask the court to follow the negotiations.
Thank you. You can call your first witness.
Thank you. Allison? Ms. McDonald.
Okay. Allison McDonald, if you'll raise your right hand so you can be sworn.
Do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you please state and spell your first and last name for the record?
Allison, Allison, Horvath, Horvath.
Go ahead, Ms. Horvath.
If I may just clarify on the family court. When I had brought to family court for...
This is your opportunity to make a victim impact statement.
Okay.
So I would just like you to address how this has affected you.
Okay. Honorable Judge, John McDonald has turned my family's life upside down. Over the 10 years I was with him before we separated, he emotionally abused myself and all of my children. I knew of the emotional abuse, but I learned of the sexual and physical abuse once the kids felt safe enough to speak. He was a different person. He became a different person than the man that I met and I thought that I knew. He is extremely narcissistic and abusive. After I became pregnant, I was not allowed to work, and I was forced to be a stay-at-home mom and homeschool all 3 of my children because he refused to let us out of the home unless under his supervision. My children were denied access to public school, and I was denied working, a phone, the keys to my own car. All of us were denied doctor's visits unless his parents helped push, and they brought us themselves. We were all denied friends unless they were his acquaintances or his friends. I realized the reason for all of this was for him to maintain control. When I spoke up or tried to tell him to seek help, or I would try to guide him into a healthier way of thinking, he would blame the military for messing him up. Excuses were plenty, but none were accurate. His childhood was filled with excessive abuse of every kind possible. He does not seem to know how to treat anybody kindly unless he lies to them. It was normal for him to treat us, his family, as dirt, as if we didn't matter. He would tell me often that he didn't trust me at all and that I was useless, and they would have no feelings of remorse if myself or the kids died by tragedy or accident. After my daughter was born, this was the way that it was. I grew up in New England, and I had just had a baby so far from home in a giant city I did not know, and with no access to a phone or car. I was trapped with no way out. Those 10 years were so painful. I had no idea of the physical or sexual abuse that was going on to my children. My daughter cannot remember a time that the abuse was not happening to her. Her earliest memory she can recall is about 4 years old. She said that the abuse started about 2 to 3 times a week and then escalated to 3 to 6 times a week when she became older. John would beg me to be a patient wife, and try to be supportive. When he did not work and he stayed at the home with us, but he was unable to treat us like humans. There were so many excuses. I feel deeply pained for the torments that my children suffered at his hands. I worked so hard to help my kids overcome their traumatic young childhood. And upon filing for divorce, my oldest had just turned 9. My youngest was 5 years old. In the 3 years that we were battling in divorce court, I had worked hard to bring my kids and myself to therapy weekly. That's 4 to 6 appointments a week, while working part-time, full-time, or not working at all, depending upon the level of care and support that my 3 kids needed to get throughout their disclosures, forensic interviews, my daughter's grand jury, and everything to come. We had days, sometimes weeks at a time, in tears, heartbroken and trying to heal. We would get back to try to be normal, and then one of my kids would get triggered again, and we would repeat the process. It has been 4 years now since we all still have the issues of trusting new people, troubles with coping with the PTSD, troubles of loving besides those who are closest to us, and troubles healing. Throughout the past 4 years and continuing on for the extended foreseeable future, I am needing to pull the kids out of school for therapy and for courts today, and occasionally pull them out of school for a mental health day if all of the coping skills are not enough and they need time to just cry and talk and share what they remember and to be validated in their pain and their suffering. I've had many panic attacks, chronic and frequent, since getting free of John. I am afraid that he is going to harm my kids again and that he will hurt me again. We were granted a temporary protective order since the first police report that was extended throughout the 3 years of the divorce process, and it was written into the divorce decree. John has broken that TPO many times, and to my knowledge, following up with Metro, there has been no repercussions for all of those, including the time that he followed me around the family courthouse because he wanted to share my ticket in line. But I got a marshal to escort me from the building, and I made a police report after the same day he admitted that through talking parents that he was taunting and mocking me, saying that I was scared and I needed to be escorted out. We moved out of state as soon as possible for our safety because he never followed the rules. We were on the confidential address program in Nevada and now the address confidentiality program in New England to keep us safe. My kids and I still fear for him coming for us or sending someone to punish us because he has told my family and myself through talking parents. His family attorney had suggested in court, his brother Michael had said during an interview on Facebook that I am responsible for him being arrested, that he is innocent and he has done nothing wrong. He failed his polygraph tests to my knowledge and admitted to sexually abusing his daughter. But then he says that he is innocent. I know that he feels no remorse for abusing his kids or no guilt for teaching his daughter that it was her job to sexually please him. He used to joke with me and say, "What would happen if I cheated on you?" And I kept replying that he stays home all day, not working, and that he was socially awkward and an introvert. He would never cheat on me, even given the opportunity. Now I see that that was his way of gloating to my face, that he was cheating on me with the child that we made together. And I cannot begin to describe how disgusted I am by the man that my kids used to call Dada. My kids and I will continue to have nightmares of him, often choking or killing us, torturing us. To me, it is not surprising that our nightmares are all alike because our fears are the same. While my nightmares plague me often, caffeine helps, but my kids are zombies often from their lack of restful sleep that they get. My kids have a fear of guns because of the time that he pointed a loaded gun at them. They have a fear of drowning and suffocating because he would choke them and sit on their tiny bodies with his 300-pound self. As a game, they tried fighting or hiding for their lives. It is a time I can never replace for them, memories I cannot erase. But I work hard daily to fill their lives with love, happiness, support, and understanding. My daughter hates her body, hates herself for what she was taught was a normal father and daughter relationship. She is disgusted and feels guilty that she kept this secret for him because he made her afraid for her life. This feeling continues to haunt her, and she is not sure whether she will ever understand how to get over it or why she was sexually abused by her father. In the 4 years of court battles with John, we are still in Supreme Court fighting an appeal. We have a family court, criminal court, child support, and TPO court cases. That's 5 court case numbers I have had to memorize, documents enough to fill a filing cabinet. And all those documents, there are countless lies, false testimonies made by him or his attorney on his behalf. With all the documented lies in court, his history of lying to us, his family, his friends, bosses or coworkers when he had a job, with all of the TPO violations, I am extremely concerned about his ability to obey probation. I am asking Your Honor for the max amount of probation time. I have been told that is 5 years, so that he may have the time to properly understand through counseling how his actions have brought him here today and the impact he has had on his family and his 3 children who will grow up struggling to feel normal and have trust issues. I worry, Your Honor, for any and all future children that may come into his life, for all adults that may mistake his manipulations as a game or teasing. I know my daughter and sons worry this as well. My daughter wanted to testify at jury trial to prevent any more children falling prey to him, to be tortured by him, to hate themselves because of him. I wanted to testify for the same reason, but also so that everyone of all ages may not fall victim to him again. Your Honor, I am so tired of breaking into cold sweats of fear and having stabbing panic attacks thinking of the pain he has suffered on my family, as well as his own family. His sister Amanda, who trusted him with her own traumas, was blindsided and betrayed. His Nana and Papa, who continued to support and love my kids and I. His stepdad, who would drop everything and help whatever was needed during those years of picking up the pieces. I lost all friends that I had because they knew John before that they knew me, and they chose his side and his lies. It was through the support of Amanda and the stepside of John's family that disowned him, that kept staying in Las Vegas throughout the court process tolerable, even though we all wanted to be safely away. Knowing John as I do not believe he is able to be a functioning member of society. His moral compass is beyond repair. I would like to see him live his life behind bars, but I was content asking the DA to offer him 15 years in prison for the plea. Having the time zones between us does not make me feel any safer for my kids or for myself. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder and hiding. I would like for him to be a sex offender for life, but please, Judge, my kids and I are relying on you to do what feels right, and we are working hard to rebuild our lives. There's a long road ahead, and we do not want to look behind us anymore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have speak next.
You have to be here.
You'll raise your right hand so you can be sworn.
Raise your hand.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
You have to say.
Can you please state and spell your first and last name for the record? Miss Horvath, can you please have the phone or the device closer to him so we can hear him better?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You want me to read it for you? Do you want to read some of it?
You don't have to talk. It's up to you.
He's always been very shy. May I read his scratch notes and his papers for him?
Go ahead.
So he has written down some bullet points, and he's elaborated on some of them. He has written down traumatized, sat on back and couldn't breathe. He manipulated us into not telling Mom. I thought he would hurt me because he pointed a loaded gun at me and my siblings, and he chased us with a sword. He put us on the wall as far as he could reach and held us by our throats and our bodies, and it hurt. It stretched our bodies and made it hard to breathe, and I felt horrified. He sat on us. We thought it was a game because that is how he played. But when we ran out of air and told him to get off, he would not get off, and I felt destroyed. He would hunt us down. I told my brother not to hide with me, or we'd get caught. When he grabbed me from under the coffee table and the couch, he would sit on me, and I remember clearly my brother and sister trying to save me. Then he grabbed my brother and slammed him on the couch and sat him and me and my sister. Sat on him and me. And my sister tried to save him. I couldn't. I could tell.
I could tell it hurt.
It hurt.
I could tell it hurt.
I could tell it hurt my brother. Thank you. I can tell it hurt my brother. So hard, and he hurts me. Then he did the same to my sister. We could not breathe when he sat on us. I remember everything looked fuzzy from the lack of air. It was a game to him, but to us, it was survival. I would like to see him spend 30 to 35 years in prison so we could feel safe. And we know he won't be able to terrorize us or others again. He is put down at the bottom after effects and between, so that would be from the last 4 years to now. He has written PTSD, scared and cautious. He feels like he cannot make decisions because he cannot trust. Panic attacks, brain refuses to remember things. Can't fall asleep or stay asleep. I am scared of trusting people. Extremely cautious of what I am doing to not get hurt. And not sure of how I am feeling. I rely on others to help me or to guide me in life. And that's what he wrote.
Thank you. Our last speaker, I believe, will be.
Can you please raise your right hand? You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Can you please state and spell your first and last name? Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
You still want me to read this?
Yeah, and I'll elaborate on things that.
You'll elaborate? Okay. She wants me to read and then she will elaborate. I hate how I feel about myself because my dad had abused me. It felt that my life was normal, but it was far from that. He had basically make me hate myself and thinking about suicide ever since I was about 6. What he did to me had caused me to hate living because I had felt nothing good could come of my life and I would never feel safe again. And so I hurt myself in multiple ways because he had created a bad habit for me, which had been ongoing throughout my young childhood, and it is very hard to break. It took years after I no longer saw him to get out of that habit of hurting myself. But as soon as I think of him, it causes more stress to me that I cannot handle, and I have regained a terrible habit. I sit longingly in my bed sometimes wishing that I had a complete and normal family without any trauma. Because from my eyes, I feel like an outcast to society. I feel weird seeing everyone else have a mostly happy life and that I cannot be or think like that anymore because of the actions he has done to me and my family. I think he should at least get 10 years prison time so my youngest brother will be at least 18 and we will be safer from him rather than we are now. My entire life has been pain and suffering because of him. He was never supportive of us, and he was a terrible father. My mother has always been supportive of us and helps us in every way she can. Even though my dad was physically bigger, my mom had the bigger arms to embrace us during those tough times. The psychotic things he did kept us from society and happiness. He would not let us have cats, but they kept me emotionally stable. He had kept us from learning and from going to school. He would not feed us because he was lazy. He had given us not nearly enough quality time and did not care about us. He is a sex offender and has invaded my personal space. He gave us all anxiety, PTSD, and gave me depression. He also did not make me feel comfortable in my own skin. I would have panic attacks if I saw somebody who looked like him, and we grew up lonely and secluded. He could keep his abuse hidden, and he did anything to try to get his way to keep control. Was there anything you wanted to elaborate on?
I feel like since he had brought pain to us, like he physically hurt us, I feel like that's probably why I don't have very good memory anymore, because it kind of like got to my brain.
Oh, yes.
And
That's PTSD.
yeah, but I can't remember.
I know. That's okay.
Now we're going to listen to the court.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your testimony. Anything else?
If the court's inclined to follow, also, Madam.
In accordance with the laws of state of Nevada, this court does now sentence you as follows. The administrative assessment, the DNA fee, and the collection fee will be imposed. You'll be required to submit to genetic marker testing. The evaluation fee of $1,676.70 will be imposed as well. And at this time, the court's going to sentence you as to count 1. 12 to 30 months, suspend it, place you on probation not to exceed 30 months with the following special conditions: that you comply with all the terms and conditions as enumerated in NRS 176A.410. You'll be required to register as a sex offender within 48 hours of today. You're to have no contact with the victims in this matter, either directly or indirectly. You're to enroll and complete sex offense specific offender course as recommended in the evaluation. Is the restitution, is it $3,018?
Yes, Your Honor, I believe that's what I had added that up to.
Okay, so, and restitution, the amount of $3,018, and you'll be required to comply with all general conditions of parole and probation.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Your
you.
Honor.
Thank you. All right, Kelly.
I'll just call you. You can go take a break.
All right, thank you. All right.